Sometimes the harder you try to force the answer, the further away it gets. So what do? You think harder, and you push harder, and you believe harder. You analyze every single angle and every single possibility you could think of. And then you replay every option as you try to control every single outcome. And instead of finding clarity, you just get more tension, more pushback. Instead of finding a direction, you just get tired and exhausted. Instead of forward movement, you just get more resistance. But what if the problem is not that you are failing to try hard enough? What if it's actually that you are trying from the wrong state of mind and the wrong state of being? Once that problem has been defined, and once the information has been gathered, and once that desired result has been clearly imagined, added fretting and extra worrying doesn't help. It gets in your way. Through Ashla, we'd say it like this: the force moves through coherence, not strain. So surrender is not giving up. It's releasing control so alignment can do its work. My name is Justin Gates, and joining me today is Michael Perry. Over here somewhere.
Hey, fam.
And you're listening to the new Ashla podcast. Hello and welcome to the new Ashla podcast. So happy you've joined us for this episode today. So our episode is on the topic of surrender. I know, it's a very difficult thing for people to hear. I need you to surrender. Surrender everything, right? Not easy to hear. But the title of today's show is Surrender is Not Giving Up, How Alignment Really Works. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get started, Michael, I want to remind you guys to like and share and follow this podcast everywhere you find it, on the YouTubes, the Facebooks, and all that good stuff. So don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to us. So today, Michael, we're going to be talking about why trying to control, or really over-controlling and overthinking and trying to create these outcomes that we want to see actually block us from growing and block us from transforming into something better.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love this topic because it's very much, I know for me, it was like the more I tried to do this, the more stuck I actually got. I heard this term a while back when I started this journey that has really been something I evaluate, which is bulldozing. So bulldozing is where you just try to say, screw my nervous system, screw my struggles, screw reality. I'm going to run ahead with this and see how far I can get, thinking you're going to be able to complete a whole world marathon when you're not even used to running a 5K. And one of the important parts of this that I really think is important to touch on is parts work. Because with parts work, we have exiled parts, which are the parts that we deemed not good in our unconscious. And then we have parts that are firefighters. And this is where I really started really understanding how dangerous bulldozing is. Because when you have these parts that you're trying to bring to the surface, you know, being assertive, being able to go make sales pitches without flinching, you know, you're going to have those firefighters come in the minute you get into that discomfort, the minute you get activated, or the minute you hear that no. And it is going to do everything it's always done. It is going to shame you back in your shell. It is going to tell you all the reasons this is a bad idea. And it is going to do all it can to sabotage whatever progress you try to make, because you're just trying to bulldoze through it.
Yeah. That's a really good analogy, because bulldozing is permanent. You knock over a house by accident, it's gone. It's knocked over, man. You know, it doesn't come back. You can rebuild it a year later if you're lucky. You know, if you bulldoze a relationship, chances are you're not going to be able to rebuild that, at least not anytime soon, right? And so that kind of brings us to the first set of things we have to kind of look at today. And that first thing is we have to separate effort from force, right? Those two get mixed up all the time. You know, if I say, Michael, you just need to believe harder, you know, what I'm asking you to do is force your will upon God or upon something or upon whatever, right? You just gotta do it harder. Well, that's force. That's not effort. Effort is a whole different thing, because effort is our friend, right? Effort is never the enemy here, because growth requires practice, and it requires discipline, and it requires action, and sometimes correction, and lots of responsibility. The path of light is not a path of laziness. even though sometimes it looks like we're not doing anything, especially when we're sitting around and meditating or being still, right? So, but forcing is different. Wouldn't you say? What is the difference between forcing and good, honest effort?
You know, it comes back to that whole, if you're forcing something, you're trying to make outcomes happen without looking at the data first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Effort is where you're being strategic. You're doing the steps you need to get to where you're going.
Yeah. Yeah, you're being wise. You're employing wisdom into the things you're trying to do, right? Instead of just reacting or falling onto old things. And this matters because a lot of people, again, will confuse that strain with commitment. You know, everybody says, oh, you need to be more committed, Michael. You don't need to strain to find commitment, because they'll believe, like for example, they'll believe that if something matters, that they must grip it tighter. They must hold on to it tighter, push harder, right? Especially if they can't find the answer or if they can't find a way to progress. So then the default is to just think harder or believe harder. And especially if the path is uncertain, Michael, they'll analyze every detail, every single nook and cranny of it. And if the outcome matters to them or if they benefit from it, then it just gets crazier, right? They'll hold on tighter. But does gripping tighter to these things create any kind of real movement?
No, it creates paralysis.
Yeah. It creates resistance, right? And this is where they get trapped, my friend. This is where they get trapped. They're not lazy. They're just exhausted at this point from trying to force everything. Their body's tired. Their minds are tired. Their souls are over it.
Well, I think this ties into what we were talking about earlier, where it's like we go through this form of analyze. We try to give ourselves the pep talks, make the perfect plan. And then as we build that momentum, when we finally go to take that step, the minute something hits that wall, the minute something unseen happens, is the minute everything just collapses like a house of cards.
And of course, the best axiom for this first segment of the show today is agonizing over a situation to resolution provides limited gain and comfort. The price you pay long term for not letting go can be great. What are some of those what is the price we pay for not letting go?
Everything. Stagnation, right? I mean, again, it's like I think back to all the changes I tried to make. And again, it comes back to that whole, who am I now next to who do I want to be? And making sure the steps I take are not to go from here to here, but the steps to get there. And anytime I would try to push myself out of my comfort zone and try to jump to the top of the mountain, I'd end up defeated. I'd end up then back in the cycle, only worse, because I doubted myself that much more. You know, and again, it leads to stagnation. It leads to worse habits. It leads to just feeling inadequate. And I see so many people struggle with this because the best step you can take is the unplanned one. And not only that, but it's the one that is the most resonant with who you are today. If you, again, the whole marathon example, right? If there's someone who's going to go run a 20K marathon and that's your goal, don't make your goal, I'm going to go participate in a 20K marathon. Make it, if you haven't worked out, go hit the treadmill a couple times a week and start building endurance. Then do a 5K and so on and so forth. You got to meet yourself where you're at, because when you don't, you're doing nothing but setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. You said it, man, because better the devil we know. Right. And when we agonize over things, it brings us, as you said, back into that loop, and we can feel safe, at least with what we know. Right. If we think that if we replay the decision enough or analyze enough or mentally rehearse enough, we'll eventually gain control. But that's just an illusion. And of course, through Ashla, this axiom is reminding us that letting go is not a weakness. Surrender is not a weakness in this sense. It is the releasing of unnecessary suffering, ultimately, right? We stop strangling the path to death and allow the other things to do their work.
Yeah. Well, and I think an important part with this conversation that we're having here is you have to accept who you are. You have to accept your shortcomings. You have to accept your pitfalls. You have to release any expectation of betterment beyond what is the next honest step. Because the more you constantly hold yourself to an unrealistic standard, the more you will agonize to death. The more you will criticize yourself, judge yourself, pigeonhole yourself into your bad behaviors, because it becomes more daunting.
Why does this, almost to a neurotic level sometimes for a lot of us, overthinking feel so productive when it's actually keeping us trapped?
It's the illusion of momentum, right? It's we are planning, it's we are constantly creating ideas, constantly brainstorming ways to better ourselves. It creates this illusion that we're actually making progress when we're really being stuck. And even worse, again, when you have 100 things you're planning for, you're then all of a sudden not prepared for the one thing that will happen. Instead of allowing things to take its course, to get into the flow of the ebb and flow of the universe, of the force of God, to follow the path. Because when we allow things to unfold naturally through action, which is the key thing we're avoiding, we then don't allow ourselves to actually make that meaningful step.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, if this stuff is starting to resonate and you feel like we're calling you out, right? It's because you're confusing with this power over control, effort over, right? You're confusing these things. We're not saying stop trying. We're not saying stop trying. You should always keep trying. But that overthinking, that loop that you're describing here, it shows up because the mind refuses to release the damn question after it's already done its part, right? The mind isn't meant to take over the whole thing. Neither is the body, neither is the soul. We have to work together, right? And this need to control everything outside of you, as it seems, you're really just trying to control everything inside, right? Everything starts in here. Everything starts in here, in here. This needs to get with this, right? This needs to get with this. We all need to get our bodies, mind, soul, hearts in line. And
Elaborate
really, that's
on
the goal.
that.
Well, because the parts of us, if we're not operating out of that internal locus of control, our parts of us separately will try to take over everything. This is why sometimes when we get really emotionally charged, our bodies start literally shutting down on us, right? They will lock us in, make us sit down or lay down. We can't even move sometimes. Or our breathing will get so far out of control because the body has now lost control over its part because it didn't let go, didn't let the heart do it, and when I say heart, I mean emotion, just to kind of, in case you guys didn't realize that. So we have to let each part do its thing. And when we don't, Michael, we have to understand that there are other parts of us that we can't see, our shadow parts, right? So when we don't train ourselves for each part to do its thing and let the next part take over so that the whole of us can be in charge, we're also leaving room for the shadow parts to come in, right? So that's why that stuff's important.
Well, and I mean, a lot of the work we talk about is retraining the nervous system, right? When it comes to what you're talking about here, which is really important to a body, I think anyone can relate with this sentence, right? Imagine something that you've been avoiding for a minute. Dishes in the sink, clothes needing folded, something in your life at some point in time where you avoided it, and the more you avoided it, the bigger the chore became. Because that's what happens to our minds and our nervous systems. Molehills become mountains the more we avoid taking the action. And that's why analysis paralysis is a real saying, is because the more we analyze, the more we plan without taking action, the more we're unconsciously telling our bodies and our unconscious minds that we are not capable of taking the next step. And so we start avoiding it more. We start feeling more overwhelmed every time we think of taking that step. And it slowly locks us in place, because the whole being in alignment, spirit, mind, and body. Like, I love the whole concept of it. There's science to back it up, where there's the mind, heart, and gut connection, where these things need to be aligned to have congruence, because they will fight each other.
Heart Math is a book. Everybody on earth should read Heart Math. Exactly what you're talking about, because it physically and metaphysically connects, right? And you're absolutely right. The inner system, we need direction. We need a clear path and a clear aim. If you define the problem and gather, the evidence, the reality of things, and you can imagine the desired result, and you become sincerely invested in the solution, which means allow some emotional charge there, all that stuff matters, but it has to happen in its parts. You said it at the beginning of the show, parts work. We must allow the parts to work so that the whole can move.
Yeah.
Right?
We got to stop denying their existence.
Well, think of your car, right? Nobody gets in the car and turns the key, which is a separate system from the engine, a separate system from the transmission, right? A separate system from the wheels, from the drive shaft, from the cooling system, right? All these things, all these separate systems. All you're doing is turning the key and everything works and you drive down the road. right? Now, do you need to know how all those systems work in order to get in your car, turn the key, and drive down the road? No. No, but when they break, you sure as hell start noticing things, don't you? When one of the parts break, you start noticing. So we get in a car, we turn the key, right? We do our part. Our part is to turn the key and we drive. For a lot of things in life, we need to do our part and then let it go. Let it go so that every other part can do its thing, right? So that everything follows and flows as it should. But we'll obsessively check the same thought or let the mind take over or let the body shut down because we're now dysregulated because we keep reopening that same little box of fear, or we're trying to take over a part that's not for us to take over or for us to do, right? I don't do breathing, Michael. It just happens. Now I can instruct my body to do different kinds of breathing for short periods of time, right? I don't remember the last time I laid in bed and thought I have to keep thinking to breathe while I sleep. I don't, right? Can you imagine if you were in charge of that? That would suck, right? So this kind of thing, Michael, also shows up after we've already made decisions, right? We'll make a decision, but then never actually release the debate in our head or in our body. Right? What does that do for us? Is that any good? Is that good for us to do?
Well, again, I think it comes back to, is there action being acted upon within this moment? And is it a realistic action? Because again, we're all guilty of this. I know I've done it 100 times, even to this day, where I decide I want to do something. And then instead of just doing the thing, I let myself get into rumination. I let myself get into planning. One of the biggest hurdles, because I've gotten so good at action, is you have time in between things where you're waiting for something. So then you start planning for the thing to your detriment.
Yeah. And you just brought in an axiom. When a law is at hand, avoid the desire to resist this. Taking time to reflect and consider the knowledge and the wisdom and experience that you have gained is a path to enlightenment. They resist this like the plague, right? For Ashla, we teach that this is a practice of trusting the unseen and practicing the trusting of movements that happen beneath the surface without our seeing, right? Without us controlling. Because our lesser self will say, if I stop worrying, I will lose control. But the greater self says, I never had total control. Number one, if I never stop worrying, I will never hear clearly, right? So the greater self understands that if I never had control over it all this time, then I probably don't need control over it now, right? So stop worrying. And this is where we combine the two superpowers of faith and discernment, right?
Yeah.
How does faith alongside of discernment help us through this?
I think faith, we can all say we're religious, we all have our spiritual practices, but faith isn't just a belief system, right? Faith is being able to accept things as they transpire, to have faith that all things will work out the way they need to, good or bad. The more you can embody that there is no good and bad, you either live a little or you learn a little. Like, there is so much power in that, because again, with discernment, it's being able to discern, do I need to worry about this? Do I need to plan 10 steps ahead or for 10 different outcomes? Or do I allow things to naturally unfold as I go about it? Don't get me wrong, there is a benefit to planning. You want to be strategic, but there is a fine line between being prepared and overcompensating.
Right, right. And people will avoid these lulls. They really, really will.
Guilty.
Won't they? Yeah, we all are. Me too. I teach meditation, and sometimes I try to avoid it like the plague, dude, right? I know it's time to pray, and then I'm like, man, I don't really want to. Because I always feel like I have something better to do sometimes, right? It's like, even though this thing is good for me, meditation is good for me. Sleep is good for me, but I try to wake up early so I can get more done, right? We all fall into that. Especially when it seems like there's nothing else to do. Our egos get kind of nervous. It wants to control and pull another thing, or ask another question, or find yet a new angle to something we've already beaten to death to analyze, right? But for us at Ashla, stillness is not empty, right? Stillness is alive, Michael. It's one of the places where the force becomes easier to feel and perceive because there's less noise. And that's why that matters, the lull.
Well, and I think there's something powerful with one of the other axioms, and that is how, when in times of complacency, stagnation is death, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not because I have this issue too. It's like I'll have a lot of things going on and I get these beautiful moments of reprieve. And what do? I go be productive on something else. I go find something else I need to tackle. And don't get me wrong, we all have those laundry lists of things we need to get done. But when we don't give ourselves time to just process everything we're learning, everything we're experiencing, to allow ourselves to be present with the moment, it compresses in our nervous system. That's why so many of us hate being alone with our thoughts, right? Is because the minute we do have stillness, everything we've been bottling up and trying to process then gets fully activated. And it's really bad for a lot of you with insomnia. That's exactly what it is. Your mind is now catching up with your body because you spent your whole day distracting yourself.
Right. Yeah. With all the issues that I've been having, all the health issues I've been having lately, I'm coming to understand that sleep is probably the most important thing we do all day long, every day. Rest and sleep, because it can kill your organs. The things that keep you alive, right? Whether it's insomnia, whether it's sleep apnea, whether it's drinking 4 pots of coffee before bed and wondering why you can't fall asleep. Sleep is really, really important. But it's important to remember, to understand that sleep, things like rests, things like reflection and meditation, these are actions. You are being active when you're doing this stuff. So the ironic thing about a lull, as the axiom before said, we tend to ignore these, but we're actually, by ignoring them, we are falling into a non-active state. By embracing the lull, Michael, ironically, we are active. We're not abandoning action here, right? We are actually bringing action into right relationship with us and right order. And this is, surrender is often misunderstood. It really is. People think that surrender means doing nothing or giving up or becoming passive or letting life happen without the need to participate. But true surrender is active because it has active trust in there. It comes after alignment, not before it. It comes after we've done our part, not as an excuse to avoid responsibility.
I think one important thing too is, we go back to faith, right? What I described in faith is exactly the surrender we're talking about. It's being able to not rigidly hold on to things we're trying to make happen. It's not rigidly trying to control outcomes or other people. It is not trying to force results. It is allowing yourself to move with life as it presents itself. And again, that doesn't mean inaction, but it does mean allowing for when times of rest appear, being able to sit in it. When an idea strikes you, to act on it instead of plan. And again, there is a level where preparation is good, but beyond that is just overcompensation. We have to be able to have faith that if we do start making efforts to bettering our lives, that our lives will get better. But it's about those honest steps.
It is to act in a very mature and wise way, to see things in a wise and mature way, because you start to gain the ability to participate with the chaos of life without trying to dominate it, to act without panic or reaction, to care more deeply than you ever have, but also without being consumed, to trust the force, to trust the light, to trust all of creation without abandoning your part of it, your responsibility, the things that you're responsible for. This is where this starts to become simple, more simple. Aim, act, and release. Aim means that you clarify what you're actually moving toward. What kind of growth are you looking for? What are the things you need? What are the things you want? What are you after, Michael? What is the real problem? What is your desired result? Not that you're going to get your desired result because you don't have any say in that part. Usually, what would alignment look like for you? What is rooted in truth rather than being guided by fear? Now, to act means that you take that next available best step, that step that's in right relationship with you, right? Your whole self. Not every step. Don't take all the steps at once. Good luck with that. Remember, this is parts work. We work in parts, right? not the whole path at once, the next faithful action that is actually yours to take. Notice what I said there. The next faithful action that is yours to take. And then, of course, Michael, release just means stop trying to control every goddamn thing that doesn't belong to you. Let it go. Let it go. Right?
You have to. The minute you try to hold on to things as you're trying to act on them, the more you're going to be overanalyzing the situation, the things that are presented to you. One of my favorite teachings you gave me that I have really embodied is you told me, set goals, have a mission. You want something that drives you to keep moving, but don't rigidly hold on to what you see in the distance. Allow opportunities to present themselves. Allow yourself to go with the flow of things. Be like grass that can blow this way and that, and not like a tree that is rigid and breaks in the wind. You must allow yourself to be open to the possibilities that are there. But you're not going to experience those if you're not taking action and if you're trying so desperately to have a specific outcome.
Yeah. You have to stop trying to control what does not belong to you. You release the damn timelines and the time frames. You release the reaction. You release the need to control the outcome, the certainty. Damn sure don't need the need for perfection. And the illusion that you actually are in charge of the whole thing. You're in charge of your desire. You're in charge of the things that you want, right? And you got to take your steps to that, but then you got to let it go. Axiom of light. Fear, doubt, and confusion propel ego into action. Disaster is inevitable if one cannot abandon his or her attachment to agenda. I don't even need to explain why this axiom fits here, right? When we allow these things to lead, the ego rushes into action. It tries to control and manage and force and predict and yada, 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 all these things. But really, it's trying to dominate the whole process. But surrender has us abandoning our attachment to agenda while still remaining aligned with ourself and with truth. That distinction matters because we never abandon purpose, do we? We abandon that egoic control over what it thinks our purpose is. We certainly do not abandon action, but we need to let go of panic. We do not abandon our path. We need to abandon the demand that path obey not us, but our fear. As Luminari, we are guided by principle, not attachment. We act with intention, and then we let go. We do our best, and then we step away, right? That allows the universe, God, the force, whatever, to guide the rest, the correction, the timing, the unfolding. It's not our business after that. What does surrender look like, Michael, in our body, in our mind, in our nervous system? What does it look like for that? And how does someone release control without collapsing into a state of avoidance, which we talk about a lot, that is not good, right?
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to surrender, there are phases of this, right? When you're someone who is learning how to practice surrender, it's going to feel like chaos to your nervous system. It's going to feel unnatural because you want to control things, because that is how you've shown up your whole life. But the more you learn to trust, the more you learn to have faith, the more you feel a sense of peace, a sense of ease, and above all, a sense of trust, not just with the universe, but with yourself. Because often that is one of the underlying things that does create this paradigm of control, is we don't trust ourselves enough to follow through, which is ironic because we try to build these systems so that we can take the actions that'll make us trust ourselves, but inevitably create just more lack of self-trust. So as you progress through learning how to surrender, as you start learning how to become one with the nature of things, the more you can move through it with grace, with ease, and with action. Like, the one thing I'll say is, this journey I've been on for the last couple of years, I was someone who was very much this kind of person of planning out the wazoo, trying to take action, constantly trying to change my life, never getting results. And it wasn't until I made peace with who I was trying to become, with who I actually needed to be next. And as I started taking deliberate actions, the more I learned to surrender and actually follow through, the more it became easeful. And the more I did, the more the universe met. The more the universe opened up opportunities. And the less rigidly I held on to what I thought was right, the more those opportunities flourished and the more things that presented itself. The more I found things that I never thought would be a calling for me presented as this is an opportunity for you to learn, to grow, and discover more of yourself. The less we try to rigidly define who we are and allow ourselves to just become, the more we can flourish into something beautiful.
Yeah, especially as we learn how important our responsibility is. I think that's a difference for a lot of us, is the idea of responsibility. Because passivity avoids responsibility. Surrender fulfills it. It fulfills responsibility and then releases what is beyond it. This is mine. What's out there is someone else's or something else's, right?
Yeah. Well, how much would you say these behaviors, this control, this, all of that, what we're talking about, how much of it is rooted in fear?
All of it. All of it. All of it. You know, this is why I always say fear is no consort or friend or ally to any human, let alone any human higher power, any higher power above us, right? Yeah, fear helped us survive, literally as a species, several hundreds of thousands of years ago. Fear helped us survive, but it is no friend to us now. Not in that way, right? So it's 100%. Do you have any closing thoughts for today's show?
There's two type of people that are going to be really called out by this episode, which is a good thing. Like, if our episodes trigger you, you are so in the right place. Yeah, me too. I have been moving 100 miles per hour. And when we started talking about rest, I'm like, yeah, I've kind of dropped the ball in that area. But so the two people I really want to speak to are the people who plan everything and the people who feel stuck, because they kind of need different advice that was sort of incorporated in all this. If you're someone who feels stuck in life, make your next goal something that is manageable. Stop trying to have unrealistic expectations for yourself. Meet yourself where you're at. All right, define what your goals are, and they can be crazy, but then ask yourself, what is one realistic step you can take? And something that'll stretch you, but not flood you with emotion or overwhelm you. You want something that you can practice repeatedly until you build enough self-trust to take the next meaningful step. And for those who plan, stop it. Just stop it. I'm telling you right now, the best thing you can do for yourself is to throw away the planners and say, I'm not going to write any more things down. I am just going to I will act on it. Yeah, you're going to forget some important things you got to take care of. Yeah, you're going to end up being a little disoriented because that has always been your escape. It was my escape. It's many people I love's escape. But the only way to avoid being lost in the production instead of the actual masterpiece you're trying to create of your life, you have to just jump in and start taking action. And again, same advice with the advice I gave the people who feel stuck, because most likely you do. Make it a meaningful step that stretches you but doesn't flood you. Take actionable steps to meet yourself where you're at and not who you think you should be, because that's just betrayal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great advice on the planning thing, because all you're going to end up doing, if you obsessively plan everything, you're just you're just putting another plan on top of that plan. And then when something knocks you off kilter, then you're going to do another plan for the plan for the plan. Pretty soon you got 20 levels deep of one plan. That's so far from the original plan that it's ridiculous, right? So our exercise for today is going to be the aim, act, and release. You're going to take 10 minutes with a journal. I know. Yep, get it out of your system. Let me hear you. Go ahead. Not you, them. Okay, I know. 10 minutes with a journal. It won't kill you, I promise. Step 1, write down one problem, just one, or one decision, or one goal you have been overthinking and over planning and over not doing, over procrastinating, right? Step 2, ask, have I actually defined what I'm actually aiming at clearly in a way that I can understand 100%? That in a way that I really can understand it? Don't judge your answer, write down the answer, whatever it is. Step 3, list 3 different categories. And in the first one, it's like what I genuinely know. Second one could be what action is available. And that third one could be what remains outside of my control. What I know, what I really know, what actions are available, and what is outside of my control. Step 4, I want you to choose and perform one aligned action that you can take within 24 hours. Do not procrastinate on this. 24 hours, literally the next day. If you're doing this in the evening, the next day, bro, you got to get to work. Step 5, after taking that action, practice releasing it. My favorite way to do that is just to sit quietly by myself for just a few minutes even and slow down my breathing. And I'll say something like, I've done my part, I release the rest. You could say something like, I allow clarity and correction, and God or the light, the force, guide the next step. But I have released my part. And for those of you who are good at visualization, or you want to try some visualization with this, imagine placing that decision or that action into a sealed box. And I want you to imagine a label on that box that says, done for now. Then I want you to picture yourself turning back toward a path, some kind of stone pathway, it could be a dirt one, whatever your heart desire. And imagine yourself walking away, releasing the need to bring the box with you. Leave it there. Any thoughts on the exercise, Michael?
If this is something you're going to struggle with, you're someone who hasn't taken action in a very long time, make it small, make it reasonable, make it something you'll actually do.
But do it. Don't mess around with that. Do it. Even if it's tiny, do it. Just do it.
Do it now.
Do it. Do it. That's my best Palpatine impression. Do it. It's a pretty good one.
It's pretty good, actually.
And for our affirmations, I release the need to force what alignment can guide. I do my part with clarity, then surrender what is not mine to control. My mind and body can relax into trust. The force moves through coherence, not strain. I act with intention and allow the next step to reveal itself. And for our journal prompts, where am I forcing instead of aligning? What outcome am I trying to control too tightly? What part of this situation is actually mine to control? What part must be released into trust? What would change if I stopped feeding the debate and started feeding the path? Look, guys, there are times when effort is required. Should always give effort. Should always give it a good try. There are times when discipline is required. There are times when you must gather that information and make the decision, take action, and do the work. There are also times when the next level or the next thing that must be done does not come from us and is really none of our business. Certainly doesn't come from forcing harder or believing harder or trying harder. It comes from releasing control or the need to control. Forcing things is not faith. Strain is not alignment, and strain is not effort. Overthinking is not wisdom. Sometimes that's really just fear trying to control the path, using our ego to do it. So as you move forward from this episode, I want you guys to ask yourselves, what am I holding on to too tightly? Where am I mistaking worry for responsibility? Where am I trying to force an answer or an outcome or anything that still needs time to be ready, still needs time to emerge, to unfold? Do your part and then walk away. That's the best advice I can give you today. Do your part and walk away. Surrender is not giving up. It's trusting the path enough to stop trying to control it. If this episode resonated with you, or you know someone that this episode can help them a lot, please take a moment to like and share and subscribe. Follow the podcast in all the places we hang out, Michael. The Facebooks, the TikToks, the YouTubes. What else? The Instagrams.
YouTube, Apple Podcasts.
Yep.
We're everywhere.
Yep.
You know it. We're there.
The best place to find us is at the
newashla.com.
The greatest website ever, newashla.com. That's the best place to find us because you get everything's there. You can just skip all the other places and just go there, really, honestly. And then I can stop having to worry so much about the social stuff. Maybe. I don't know.
Also, check out the episode guide below. It's going to help you navigate this very thing we talked about. It'll give you a week of things to practice. And if you get on our website, sign up for our newsletter. In our newsletter, we're going to have a special sanctuary guide we're going to attach to our that you can download from the newsletter, which will be an extended version of the episode guide. These will be things that we eventually have within our subscriber base, but for now we're offering them for free for people who are part of the newsletter. So sign up for the newsletter, and if you don't want to do that, just down below, the episode guide's there, and it can help you work through this issue.
Yep. So look, do your part, step away, stop forcing everything. Return yourself to coherence and alignment. Let the lights move through you. With love and gratitude, Ad Lucem.
Ad Lucem.